Hello everybody, thank you again for tuning in. I am Jolie Odell, this is Venturebeat, and I'm here with Dave Lieb, who is the CEO of Bump, a wildly popular application that you bump your phones together, hence the name, and it transfers information back and forth. Now, if you've been keeping up with the mobile news, this might sound a little bit familiar because as we were discussing, when Google made their ice cream sandwich announcement, we saw this kind of functionality, and I was like, oh, that looks really familiar, where you bump your phones together and you send data back and forth. So when you saw the ice cream sandwich announcement, did you say, dagnabbit, they stole our idea?
Not at all. First of all, we've known that Google was working on things like this for a while. I mean, this is the space that we've been dedicating our lives to for the last 2.5 years. So it wasn't surprising. It's actually, nicely validating. It shows that a big company like Google thinks that this problem that we're solving is interesting enough to put some resources into.
And have you talked with them at all about how they're doing that?
Yeah, we have a great relationship with the folks at Google. We will integrate NFC if it makes sense for us in the future, when and if it rolls out. We think it's a good technology. What we want to build, which is maybe different from what they're building with Ice Cream Sandwich, is really deep interactions. They're enabling a horizontal layer of this technology. We want to build solutions to people's problems in the real world.
And also, I think you were mentioning that you want to make sure that it's interoperable between different OSs.
Sure. When I first came up with the idea for Bump, I was a business school student in Chicago that I felt was, I'm meeting all these new classmates of mine. It's the first week of school, and I'm still reading out my phone number to people. They're hearing it with their ears, typing it into their phones, and it just seemed ridiculous. And so we wanted to solve that problem. And we didn't want to wait for an OEM to build a piece of hardware into a phone. And we didn't want to have to deal with standards bodies that would make sure the Bluetooth standard works from this phone to this phone. We wanted to build a solution that was ubiquitous, could work on all phones, and was dead simple for the user. So we built our own solution to it, which works really well.
Do you see, and I appreciate that is going very well for you, and we'll talk about that in a second with stats and all that good stuff for your users. But do you see a future in which Bump becomes obsolete because all the hardware just works?
Right. So again, we don't want to just be a technology provider. We want to build actual user solutions. So I don't think, even if NFC becomes cross-compatible with every phone in the world, Apple and Google work together on it, all the phone manufacturers roll it out.
And hell freezes over.
Right.
And then.
Yeah. There's a lot of probabilities there that will multiply together to be pretty low, I think. Even if that happens, we're still going to build great user experiences on top of that. So we're happy about it. We think it's the future.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about those pesky statistics. We have a really weird metric for what's popular and what's hot in Silicon Valley. And Bump has come often on the Silicon Valley radar for a while now. But you're telling me that you're one of the most popular apps around.
Yeah, we're actually the 7th most popular iPhone app of all time in the United States. We're the 3rd most popular app of all time in Japan. We have more than 60 million downloads.
Okay. And why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? I think the big thing about Bump is that it is a cool technology, a great experience, and solves a real problem. And because of that, people want to tell their friends about it. I download Bump, I see it, it's really cool. I really want to tell you about it. And that's how we get all of our distribution. We've surveyed our users recently, and 3/4 of all of our users got Bump and downloaded it and used it right away because their friend told them to.
And you mentioned the fact that it does solve a real problem that a lot of people with smartphones have, and that's, people with smartphones is kind of a larger market than people with smartphones who like certain kinds of food or who are looking for a date tonight.
Right. So Bump is basically a new UI for cell phones. If you look at the history of computing, we started with punch cards. They worked, they weren't very user-friendly. Then there was this big innovation of getting the keyboard where you could type keys and it would show up on the screen. And then the mouse came along and revolutionized the computing world because you could move your hand and it would move something on the screen. That was pretty cool. Steve Jobs came along and said, no, we want to be able to use a touch screen so we can actually touch the content that we're talking about on the screen. Revolutionary. We're kind of the next step. We're saying, your phone is with you in your hand, you're walking around in the real world. Why should you have to look at a screen when you want to actually interact with that thing or that person next to you? So that's really what we've built. And that is, I think, pretty interesting when you think about what applications we can build on top of that.
Absolutely. So we did talk a little bit about Chicago, and it's where you're from, and it's where Bump started.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, what's the scene like out there? We've heard a lot of buzz about the Chicago entrepreneurial space lately.
Right. The space has been heating up a lot. You know, we left in the summer of 2009. So Jake, one of my co-founders, and I were at University of Chicago Booth School of Business. We were only there for a year. We dropped out when we started Bump. But in those 2.5 years, it's definitely changed. And I think, you know, Groupon being there and having a huge run-up has really helped just foster the entrepreneurship community. But it's definitely very different than Silicon Valley, even still.
It is. Okay, well, thank you, Dave, so much for being here today. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll bring you more entrepreneurship soon.